All right, so let's get right into it. If you've ever built an LLM application, you know that amazing feeling when you first get it to work. But then, pretty quickly, the really hard part kicks in. How do you make it work reliably every single time? Well, that's what we're going to break down today, the tool that was built to solve that exact problem. So, what's the fundamental issue here? It really all comes down to one big idea: non-determinism. You see, unlike your typical software where the same input always gives you the exact same output, LLM apps, they're kind of like a wild card. You can feed it the same prompt twice and get two totally different answers. And this unpredictability, well, it just creates a whole cascade of problems. I mean, how are you supposed to trace an error when you can't even get it to happen the same way twice? How do you measure if you're actually making things better? And here's the big one. How can you tell if your model is hallucinating, just making stuff up, or if it's just being creative? It really is like trying to fix a ghost in the machine. Okay, so that's the chaos, and this is precisely where LangSmith comes into the picture. It's a platform built from the ground up to bring some serious order to that chaos. Think of it as the black box recorder for your AI. So what is it, officially? LangSmith is an observability and evaluation platform. And the really important part of that definition is any LLM framework. Yeah, it was born out of the whole LangChain ecosystem, but its goal is to be this universal toolkit for anybody building with large language models. It's there to help you debug, test, and monitor whatever you create.
I really love this metaphor because it's just so spot on. You know, just like the black box on an airplane, LangSmith is there to record everything. It doesn't just tell you that something went wrong, it shows you exactly what happened, why it happened, and it gives you all the data you need to figure out how to make it better.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how does it actually pull all of this off? Let's peel back the layers a little bit and look at the core mechanics of the platform. It all really revolves around these three pillars: trace, evaluate, and monitor. It's a simple, powerful loop. First, you trace every single step your app takes. Then, you use that data to evaluate how well it's performing. And finally, you monitor its behavior out in the real world, in production. Now, when we say trace, the level of detail you get is pretty incredible. We're not just talking about seeing the final output. LangSmith gives you a complete visual map of the entire journey. Every single LLM call, every step in a prompt chain, how an agent acted, what tools it used, and on top of that, it tracks the super important stuff like latency and costs, so you know exactly where your time and money are going. And once you have all that trace data, that's where evaluation and monitoring come in. This is how you really close the loop. You can run tests for everything from factual accuracy to relevance. You can A/B test different prompts or even different models to see what actually works best. And then, once you deploy, monitoring keeps an eye on performance, so you can catch things like model drift, where performance gets worse over time before your users ever notice. It creates this awesome continuous feedback loop. So we've covered the what and the how. Now, let's talk about the where. As in, how are people actually using LangSmith in the real world, from the very first line of code all the way to production? And the use cases are just super diverse. Of course, it's a go-to for prompt engineering. It's also fantastic for evaluating those complex RAG systems. That's retrieval augmented generation, by the way, and for doing head-to-head comparisons like GPT-4 versus Claude. But it's also absolutely crucial for quality assurance. Things like detecting hallucinations, running regression tests, and of course, optimizing your costs. So you might be wondering, how does this stack up against other tools out there? Well, this chart does a really great job of laying it all out. You've got platforms that focus on specific niches, right? Like prompt tracking or general machine learning observability. But LangSmith is different. It was purpose-built for the entire LLM application lifecycle. And that last row says it all. Its excellent support for things like RAG debugging really makes it a uniquely comprehensive solution. And this all brings us to the bigger picture. LangSmith isn't just some standalone tool. It's really becoming a core component of what we might call the new standard stock for AI development. Here's a really simple way to think about how all the pieces of this ecosystem fit together. If LangChain is what you use to build the core logic, the brain of your app, and LangGraph is what you use to connect multiple brains for complex workflows, then LangSmith is the accountability layer that keeps them all in check. Let's put that another way, with one last really easy-to-remember metaphor. Think about all the work you do with LangChain to build out your app's capabilities. You can think of that as your AI engine. And if LangChain is the engine, then LangSmith is your diagnostic dashboard. It's giving you all the readouts, all the warning lights, and all the performance metrics you need to make sure that engine is running smoothly, efficiently, and reliably before you hit the open road of production. Which really just leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about. It's easy enough to build a prototype that works sometimes, but with the stakes getting higher every single day, the real question you have to ask yourself is this: is your AI truly ready for production? Do you have the visibility and the control you need to actually trust it?